and it'll show up on Instagram in a second.
I can hear you in there.
Nice. Here we are. So we're about to go live on Instagram.
I think this might work for me. I'm basically using my iRig to just go live with the audio to my iPad.
Oh,
so I think it might work. It might work. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it works.
I'm fine with that. Welcome to Wednesday Night Live, y'all. I'm Jimmy. I'm joined here with the illustrious Stephen Bates from the great state of New York. What part of New York are you from? I feel like I haven't asked that before.
Upstate, man. The place.
Upstate.
To. Oh yeah.
What part of upstate? So my family is actually originally from technically upstate, but like an hour north of New York City. Yeah.
No way. So Binghamton, New York. Where was your family?
Oh, from? Yeah, Binghamton's where Macintosh is from. The actual super high level audio. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Funny story. My grandma. This is funny. This is not related to the stream. My grandmother on my dad's side lived in Sydney, New York, which is I think it's like an hour and a half.
That's like a half hour from me.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Granted, they all lived in that initial part of just north of New York City, and what's the name of the town? Tarrytown, New York. Yes, small world. Yeah, I'd never been to Binghamton, but I've been to Sydney quite a few times. Yeah,
that's so random, honestly.
I mean, dude, we're all connected, especially in the guitar world. Anyway, welcome to not Wednesday Night Live, but Thursday Night Live. I am officially on vacation for
Thursday
Christmas, and I am, y'all. I'm too deep, and we're here to hang, and we're here to talk about a few cool things with the Maris LVX and Mercury X that we've discovered through being a part of the Kenyon Reed subscriber chat.
Oh yeah.
Right. So yeah, like I said, join here with Steven. We're hanging. If you want to hear us in full glorious stereo, you can head over to my YouTube channel. I believe technically we're streaming on my Instagram and Steven's Instagram. So yeah, if you guys want to hear in stereo so you can actually hear in context what it sounds like, head over to my YouTube channel. And yeah, here we go. So let's see. Actually, we got a few. Andre thinks on my channel says I'm 2 in as well. I'm feeling pretty intelligent, right? Oh yes,
Very
yes. Actually, me and Andre, we first. I want to say honestly, like in a lot of ways, we all connected over Instagram for different reasons, or whatever. Well, he reached out to me because he had some issues with I want to say with his H90. I think he had some command issues, and so literally the first thing we started talking about was whiskey. The very first thing, and then we finally got to the H90 issues. So anyway, like Steven, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. Just enjoying the time being a father and a guitarist, on the side.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, it's fun. It's a good time.
You ready for Christmas?
Yeah, it's gonna be good this year. We're up in New York, so we got snow, a little bit of snow on the ground. It's gonna be a good time though.
Just a little bit, not that much yet.
Not swaths of snow. No, we got a random storm like a month ago. And it was super random. Caught everybody off guard. Nobody had snow tires, and everybody's in the ditches. But yeah, it's gonna be good for sure.
Yeah, because y'all normally get your crazy heavy snow in like January and February, right?
Yep, January, February is kind of like when it goes nuts.
Get that gnarly lake effect, right? I had some good friends who lived in Syracuse for a few years, and
oh really?
Yeah, That's funny. Probably some of the worst snow in the country, if I had to guess.
They get a lot, and Buffalo's crazy. Like Bills fans, they literally hire Bills fans to go and shovel it out. It's nuts. Like to shovel at the stadium when it's so close to, being the game day. They literally have all of them come in. And they just love it. Good time.
That's so funny. I know there's some backstory and some weird shade going around with Bills fans that I don't understand because I don't follow football.
Me either, dude. Honestly, I'm a big basketball guy. Well, now that I'm a father, I'm a nothing guy because I don't have time. But I'm a one hobby guy now, so it's guitars, pretty much guitars, and that's about it. But
when you become a dad, you kind of I find this to be the case with everyone who's a relatively new dad. They always get hyper focused into something.
Yep.
So for me, when I was obviously I've been a musician for 30-something years, but when I first had my first daughter, I got hyper focused into cycling, like
That's
no
crazy.
joke, from like 2 months before she was born until I don't know, maybe 2 years after, I was just heavy into cycling.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Well, I think the theory behind it is that as a man, you don't have that initial connection with your kids initially nearly as much as your wife does, and there's a psychological thing that happens where it's like, I don't know, either you can get depressed and be like, oh, my wife is not into me anymore or whatever, or you just find something to kind of fill your mental space, whatever.
Right.
And so I found it to be the case with most people, and sometimes it's creative, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's whatever. But
now
it seems normal to me.
You're in the powerlifting stuff now, so that's fun.
Yeah, it's my my other thing. So now it's literally juggling music directing, guitar playing, music creation, production, powerlifting, and my work.
That's all. And kids and a wife.
Kids and a wife, and it's good though. It's all fine though.
Everything I've heard though about your job, it seems like a sick job to have, for sure.
I mean, I like it. I've been doing it for almost 10 years at this point, and I have a lot of liberty, not necessarily to do what I want, but I have a lot of
freedom.
A lot of freedom, a lot of independence, and I kind of own my job in a lot of ways, and so it's
that's
I like
awesome,
it.
Dude.
It's good company. Obviously, I shared with you some specifics.
Yep. That's sick, man.
So
really cool.
Anyway, so we're here tonight to talk about the LVX and the Mercury X. How about you share kind of a little bit what you've heard based on the Kenyon Reed group chat of some cool things we can do with the Mercury X and the LVX.
Right. So rumor has it that Maris could be making a modulation pedal, but also
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
but
you're one of the.
It would be great if they did,
think
but I personally don't think that's the case.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is that I think everybody's finding out, especially you and Kenyon, you don't even need a modulation pedal. You could just do it all in both these combined, which is crazy. So that's kind of what you've delved into. I'm just here to just bask in the knowledge of Jimmy Riggs. So I'm along for the ride. That's kind of how I am though too. Especially with you and Kenyon. I just like to be a sponge. So I'm just here to hang out with you and just try out the stuff, because I have obviously the LVX and Mercury X. I'm a big fan of them. I came from the Big Sky and Timeline, and I have not been happier, switching over. With the tones.
So for you, real talk, do you feel like you just kind of jumped on the bandwagon when they came out, or was it like, I like what I have with the Timeline and Big Sky, but you just wanted to explore something more, and then from there you kind of found something that you liked?
I would say more than anything, I think the blackout pedals put me over the edge. I was like thinking about it. Like, I know that's
fair.
Such a dumb reason, but like at the same time I was like, I mean, the Strymon, like the Big Sky and Timeline have been out for so long, and I think I had it at that point for only 7 years when the other pedals came out. So I was thinking about it, but I ain't gonna lie, I mean, I mostly did it because Kenyon did it. You know what I mean? But like I just trust his ear so much. I'm like, if he likes it, there's a reason, you know what I mean? And I did see you too, because I think you're one of the first like guitar guys I started following on Instagram. So seeing the stuff, I think I saw you do a post with just like
we lost him,
where it was just like using a crazy sound on a Sunday. You hear me? Hello?
Oh yeah, was it the was it something along the lines of like you can't do this in church or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. I think it was that one. And,
that was nuts. So that sound is actually this. It's called Pitch Glitch. It's a combination of it's a combination of my Pitch Glitch preset, which you can get via the link in my my bio on Instagram. The Streets delay, which is like a general purpose ping pong delay on the H90, and then really any reverb. It doesn't really matter which one it is, but it sounds like this.
Oh yeah.
And the cool thing is that it's kind of sounds initially kind of static, but when you start doing melodies into it, you get all these really cool like glitchy things going on. And to me, that was kind of my way of because at the time I had never tried out a microcosm, and I was like, let me kind of see what I can do.
Right.
I wanted something that was a little unpredictable in nature, and so that's kind of what where I landed. I landed on that, and it was also kind of a cool journey because I started it by seeing, okay, the thing has all these modifiers or whatever.
Right.
You have LFOs, you have all these different things. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do to create something that's abstract in nature, really. It was like not a standard quarter note, not a standard dotted eighth, not a standard ping pong, but just something that kind of moves irregularly.
Yeah.
Actually, big thanks to a YouTube channel by the guy, the name of Nick Reese. He was the first guy who I saw go like really, really in depth into the LVX, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. Because prior to that, I made some presets and I was pretty straightforward.
Right.
And then around the same time, I had gotten heavily into synthesis, like with my synthesizers and everything, and signal routing and all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, then I realized, the LVX does this. The Mercury X, then eventually, the Mercury X also does this thing too, where you have all these. Probably the best way to verbalize would be like, how on like the Helix stuff, you have like effects blocks, where you can place them in different places. Well, the Maris stuff has the similar things where you have like these modifiers or effects blocks. I'll call them effects blocks,
right?
With like chorus, micro pitch, octaves, all that kind of stuff, and you can kind of place it at different parts of the signal path. You can place it
wherever,
pre your effect, so pre-effect, or you can do pre and dry, which would be like the same thing as if you're going into that effect, then going into the delay or reverb.
Mm-hmm.
You can put it into the feedback loop, which means as the effect loops back and forth, delaying or reverberating over time, that effect will become increasingly more and more present.
Yes,
or you can place it after the effect.
Yep.
And you have that for, I don't know the exact number, like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different kinds of effects. And so from there, you're able to generate these really, really incredible soundscape-y type things. Or in this case, just find ways to like slightly modify your core signal, right?
Right.
So I guess we can probably kind of jump right into sound examples and kind of context.
Yep.
So right now I have just a general purpose dotted eighth delay and like a reverb. Right? Standard, whatever, kind of a core sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we discovered as actually through Kenyon really was he discovered these, using MIDI commands to place these different effects in and out of your signal chain, but just using the Maris pedals.
Right.
So what I did was I created a few pages of MIDI messages, and granted, I've only done this for just a little bit, but like right now, if I wanted to just have like my delay with no reverb, if I wanted to add in a micro pitch, I just press this button.
That's so sick.
If I wanted to add a chorus, a true chorus with the waveform that's moving, Granted, they kind of sound similar, so it might not be as...
That's so nice.
Right? And then from there, I was like, oh, you also have pitch effects. You have octaves. So then I added an octave one.
That's sick.
And then, from there, then I also just have a general purpose off. So it goes back to your normal delay. So I took that same concept and added that to the Mercury X. So now I have another page where I do the same thing, but in this case, I'll add a tremolo to my reverb. So if you're on YouTube, you'll actually hear the panning back and forth of the stereo tremolo. Add some more reverb. Or bring it down so you hear the... Cool. Right? And, same thing. I can turn it off. Back to normal reverb. I can add vibrato on the Mercury X. It's a pretty gnarly vibrato, right?
It's vibey. Yeah, that's cool.
Right? And then, of course, in theory, you can go as far as you want with it, right?
Yep.
So now we're back to normal thing, but it's the cool layer thing where you can... Maybe you're doing a... let me go back to my loops, add some drive. Actually, I think I might have the... Here it is. Right? So it's just these pedals have so much additional flexibility than just being a delay or just being a reverb, right? And the fact that you can access them at any point is remarkable, right?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, that's kind of as far as I've gone. I've also added a thing. So one of Kenyon's presets is a reverb called Riz Hayes. He's talked about it in great length. It's a reverb that has kind of unexpected additions to it, like an EQ, like a potentially crazy sounding EQ that goes into it, but it's on the very, very end. And so it adds all these additional harmonics to your notes. And he also has like a compressor on it. Yeah, so it's cool because there's so many different available layers you can possibly have.
Yep.
Just within those two pedals. One of the things that you reached out to me about was asking if you could possibly replace your POG.
Oh yeah.
With the LVX, and so my answer to that is, granted, I'm not a huge octave user or a POG user. I've technically never owned a POG or never used one. I do have some octave settings in like the H90 and whatever. So the thing for octaves is that the octave doesn't track perfectly.
Right.
So let me... And technically it's... I mean, in theory, you could turn the delay off, like the mix down and the delay. Let me add some gain to it so you can actually hear some extra harmonics on it. So to me, I'm actually fine with like some of the weird artifacts you would get from imperfect tracking.
Right.
Or mostly, So I mean, it's all there, right? And you can
is.
access it pretty easily, right?
Right.
To me, in my ears, that sounds a tad bit harsh. Partially because the headphones I'm using, they're a little brighter.
Right.
But it accomplishes the thing, right? And technically, if you wanted to, if you're dealing with some harsh frequencies, then that's when you go to the filter section of the LVX, add a filter. Maybe it's is it a low pass? Yeah, a low pass filter to where you can actually carve out some of that top end where you're not getting so much of that really bright stuff.
Shrill.
You know?
Yeah, shrill stuff.
Yeah, and so
It's pretty cool.
dude, just a ton of flexibility here, man. It's really, really remarkable. We have a few questions. Do you have any questions on your IG chat?
Let me see. I'm not sure. You go with one of yours though.
Let me see. Alex Rios. What's up, bro? Anthony's he's in the chat. Anthony's in the chat. Anthony Groves. Alex said, actually, funny enough, Alex Rios was one of the first guys who reached out to me whenever he got his stuff. Was like, for some reason I was working out of town a bunch, so he's like, hey, can you FaceTime? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything. I'm at a hotel. And so we chatted a bit, and I got him set up with the Mercury X whenever it came out.
So sick.
Let's see. A few people asking, how do you have your H90 mirror set up? What goes into what? Okay, Andre. I have, so the way my signal path is on the board. Let me turn these loops down. It's a little loud, a little noisy. So I have all my like drive pedals and compression pedals and whatnot going into the loops of the RJM. Then on the very, very last loop 6, I have it stereo, where it's going out into all my stereo pedals. And then I just have them all run in one. I'll run one loop. So stereo out from the PBC on loop 6, going into the H90. Then H90 goes into the LVX. LVX goes into the Mercury X, and Mercury X comes back in stereo. It's pretty kind of normal. I think I learned that from, what's his name, Devin with Tone Shepherd. That's how he had it set up. And I was like, because for years I used the all the loops on my PBC 10 in like, parallel and series and whatever. And then I was like, I want to simplify it, so I just ran everything in series and did it from there. But it also works the same way in terms of my MIDI chain. So MIDI chain goes into the H90, LVX, Mercury X, and then back into the PBC.
Nice. How do you? This is probably a dumb question. How do you go back into the RJM? Because it's only one.
Yeah, so Besttronics, or BTPA is the company name. They're out of
extension, basically.
They're out of Chicago area. They make a cable, so it's it's one it's a one MIDI cable that then branches off at the 2.
Right.
And it works. It works just fine as long as you have the right cables going into the right pedals. It works just fine.
That's cool.
Let me see. Jared on YouTube said, do you ever mix your delays with H90 and LVX tape and delay? Yeah, I do. I do that. I'll show you how I do it right here. So I don't do it in the same way that Jake Faber does it. But like I'll do, let me see. My pages on the PBC are getting kind of congested.
Yep.
Yeah, so if I wanted to, most likely I'll do like my dotted delay, then I'll have that going into my stereo ping pong on the H90, and that sounds like this. Right. I'll turn the reverb off.
Very cool.
Generally speaking, I prefer the digital delays over the tape delays. In the
weird, right?
LVX. Well, it's funny because most people. Well, and the reason is the tape delay on the LVX, or the magnetic delay. It's a bit more accurate to like an old tape delay. So it's a lot more noisy, a lot more inconsistent in its modulation. And the reality is most people don't like that. They don't like that because the Strymon tape delays are kind of pristine. They're like they're not digital delay pristine, but they don't have nearly as much warble as as a real tape delay. You know, I have a tape machine back here that I've used as a delay before, and it's
That's sick.
It's gnarly. It's not crazy clean. You know.
You have a good bit of like rack mounted gear, right? Off to like in your studio.
I do. Yeah,
That's
I have
sick,
I have a few not old Lexicon stuff, but I do have some Lexicon stuff.
What was the one you got recently from Christopher Worley? Like I think you got something, right? Or you want to get one that he was using?
Well, so his he has a Moog Muse synthesizer.
So sick.
And I really want to get that. It's $3,500, and
is that vintage? Is that why?
No, it's new. No, it's a new one. Honestly, that's a pretty. I won't say it's an average price, but it's about what you'd expect from a name brand. I mean, it's no different than buying a guitar from Veritas or a guitar from Gibson or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I guess something cool too would be while we're on the topic of tape delays. I have the LVX, but I literally just added the LCAP. So we could. Why don't we just test out the difference between the two real quick, which would be kind of fun if you're done.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We could just do a quick listen. So this is the. I'll just do the delay. This is the General Dotted from Kenyon,
which is a digital delay.
Which is the digital delay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here we go. This is that one. Turn that off. Here we go. This is normal now. All right, and then here is the LCAP. So that's
I think the better comparison would be his Kenyon's Tape Destroyer preset.
Right. I think I have that on here too. Let me see.
Should be 4 if you did it in order.
Here we go. Yep, here we go. So this is the LVX. We could do it with some reverb to give it some context. And here is the LCAP. It's pretty convincing.
Yeah. The LCAP has seems to have a little bit more level to it,
right?
Or a little bit more level to the delays.
Yep.
I wonder if you raise the mix on the LVX, how close it gets.
I could even lower because there's a mix knob on here. Let me lower that one. So here we go.
Because I do agree that the LVX sounds a little fatter, for sure. No, not the LVX. The LCAP stand sounds a tad fatter.
Here we go. So this is LCAP right now. Okay, back to the Tape Destroyer. Good, honestly, comparable.
Yeah, I still think the LCAP is a tad warmer on the repeats.
It is definitely, and that could be also how I dialed it right now. I've had like 10 minutes to like mess around with the LCAP, but I do like I've just been working all week, but I do like it a lot already. Like that is the difference. I think that's a good like kind of explanation of like if you're a Strymon or a Maris person. Is that difference, right? So like I have had no time to dial this thing, but I think that sounds okay. Like that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But LVX, it's like if you take that out of the box and you didn't have presets and you had to dial something in, it probably wouldn't be that quick. It probably sounded a little bit worse.
I mean, it's the reason why we still see so many on the market because people are like, "Oh, I tried it for a week, didn't like it." I'm like, "Okay, first of all, you're lame because you didn't even give it a shot." Or freaking Brady Neely, who's like he has his entire board redone. I hope you're in the chat, Brady.
That's hilarious, dude. Oh my gosh.
Has his entire board redone by Brian Emilian, and it looks killer. And he's like, "Oh, I'm going back to this drum." It's like, dude, really?
It's hilarious.
What are you doing, bro?
he likes the narrow path, as we always say, man. You know.
Yeah, that's a kind of funny thing. I actually didn't know that about the
75% thing.
The Strymon thing. I'm wondering, is there a reason for that?
I mean, everybody I've talked to, anybody I hear talk about it, say that might be a reason though. Like who is it? I think Brady was saying how when he went to the Mercury's, like it felt too wide almost.
Yeah,
which
Anthony said the same thing too.
He did. Yeah, I was. I don't know if he was talking to you about it too, but he's like, I might go back to the Maris. You know, I'm like, dude, you hated it twice. You can't make it a third time, bro. Like, like. He got it, I think, when it first came out, and he didn't like it too much, and then he got it again, and he's like, yeah, I don't like it. Now I'm like, third time, bro? I mean, maybe you'll like it, but probably not.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, my thought is just commit to it. Just commit to the
right.
thing. Like, just commit to learning the new thing, and don't try to sound like how you used to sound.
Yep.
You know?
I think that's, like, me as a player, I honestly, you're, like, probably one of the people that most people I know, you and Kenyon, specifically you though, you just dive into these pedals though. So like anytime, like you're always nerding out, you know, trying to find different things. I think that's really great. I think I could be more like that, but I really like just loading up a preset too. I really love that, like that ease of use. But I've also I haven't like thought about going back once though since I got these. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just because of a few of these presets. I used your stuff too. Like I turned on your glitch preset during ministry time. Like it was like our MC was up, you know, doing tithe or whatever. Yeah. And my brother's like vibing out on keys, and I threw that in there. He's like, I thought I did something on keys. And I'm like, nah, dude, that was me, you know. And he's like, that was really cool. I'm like, yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. You want to know something else that's kind of neat that you can add to the PVC? I have a page that's labeled expression. It's where I access kind of those more obscure like sound packs. Yep.
That's cool.
But in addition to that, on the top layer of the PVC, I have two buttons, and one of them just ramps up the mix on the delay, and one of them ramps up the mix on the reverb, and one of them ramps up the decay or the feedback on the delay. Yeah. So really cool. From there, you know, I can go back to my pitch glitch sound, right?
Yep.
Right? So you have all that, but it gets more spacious the moment I press that button. Now you have like not completely 100% mix.
Right.
Everything starts to blur into one.
Yep.
And then I have the same button for the delay. And just keeps going. Keeps going.
So sick, dude. I love it. It's so sick, man. Like, like you can't do that with a timeline. I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, technically, in theory, you could via MIDI commands, but especially for the pitch glitch stuff. Yeah. You know, the freeze delay or ice delay on the timeline, it kind of gets close, but that tends to ramp up a lot more into something that's a little bit more chaotic, which that is also a cool thing. Yep. But so like, okay, so nerding into the LVX with that specific sound. Yep. The way that I accomplish that sound is, so on the LVX, you have a halftime and like a normal time control. When you turn it up, you know, either halftime or non-halftime or whatever, it'll either jump an octave or it'll go down an octave. And so I have that specific control being modified by an LFO. And so the actual delay is like it's like a whole note delay. It's a pretty long delay. Very long. But the way that you get the like the rises and falls in pitch, as well as rises and falls in both time and whatever, is from that halftime control. Right. So if you go to your LVX, I'm gonna get off screen just for a second. If you go to your LVX on pick the general dotted again and the Riz Haze again. Cool. So if we go to this, right? Yep. If you go to your actual settings on the LVX, you can go to your delay section, which is, where is it? Oh gosh, Kenyon picked a really strange delay to do this with. Okay, so the half speed right now is off. Now it's halftime. It's half as slow. But when I change the halftime control to off or on, that's where you get that those pitch effects. So
That's
I have
so sick.
so I have that thing being modified on that specific preset. I have that an already slow delay being modified by an LFO, and the LFO doesn't really matter as long as it's a relatively slow frequency. An LFO stands for low frequency oscillator.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just a waveform that's kind of going up and down. You can make it go faster or slower, or you can set it to MIDI clock if you want to. You can do that. I didn't do that because I wanted it non-static. I wanted it to
move around,
rise and fall, inconsequential of time. With cool. That, but back to that sound, when I go back to that specific preset, if you notice, my delay on the H90 is just a standard ping pong delay. But when I blend it with the pitch glitch,
so cool.
And then of course, then you layer the verb onto it.
Yep.
And it's a lot more reactive to your playing.
Totally.
So then when you do, you could do like a. And that's where you get all those really weird kind of rise and falls. That's where it
shines. I think that's where it shines. Is like initially when I played it, I was like, oh, it's like you don't want to play on top of it because it's essentially repeating. Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be almost like a reverse. It kind of gives off a reverse like delay vibe. But the more you play, it actually gets more pretty, 100%. Like, and it gets more glitchy, which is.
And then the other cool thing from there is then you can start layering it with drives and maybe use it with a slide.
Right.
Sorry, a little quiet. There we go.
There it is. Oh, that's so sick. And this is still on just his preset, right? And you just added some modifiers.
Oh well, no. This is my
Oh, this one. Okay, this one back to yours. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's so sick, dude.
Or use it with an EBO or whatever.
Right.
It's all about adding different layers, and some guys do that with a microcosm. Other guys do it. I do it with the LVX.
Yep. Well, that's the fun part too. I just add the microcosm. So like talking about microcosm-y stuff, I don't know what this thing does. But like what you just played, you don't have a microcosm, but I messed around with a little bit, and you can get that. That's kind of what you're going for. Is exactly what you're doing. You got all the lo-fi parameters, and you have all that stuff. I don't even know where to start with this thing. I know everybody references Mosaic, but it's just like I played with it for like a little bit, and it's just like it just like goes. You know what I mean? It'll go as long as you want, and it'll get as weird as much as you want. So let's try it out here. And I actually put it in my loop of my RJM. So my thought process there was I want to be able to like take it out as I'm playing an ambient pad, on top of it. If I'm doing, especially I have a thought of maybe doing like some just cool videos with that being the pad behind it, and then take it out almost like a lo-fi vibe. How lo-fi music goes down. So I can take that out whenever, you know what I mean? And then bring it right back in because it has that hold function. But like we could talk about this. Let's just try getting a cool sound out of it and just make it be like what you're doing on that end with that stuff, which is probably going to sound like that. So like this is already, it's very much in the vein of what you were doing there. And then I can play on top of it. I have to figure out how to make it so it doesn't get crazy out of hand. But right there, I took it out, and it's actually, I can bring it back in. That's through my loop. I have it set up there.
Oh, cool.
But that right there.
Oh, that's right, because the signal that you put into it is going to be infinitely repeating.
Yes.
In and of itself. Ah, that is cool.
So like this is it's literally all that. And then I can take it out though. It's out, you know. But
yeah. You've
definitely achieved that without the micro. Like,
well,
just
kind of a little differently. So the microcosm, I might be speaking out of place here, but I think it's called granular synthesis, which is where, or not synthesis, granular delay.
Yes,
and that's where you have like the things where it has the actual, delays work by recording the audio and then repeating it. That's how delays work.
Yep.
And then feedback is when that signal gets fed back into the delay loop, and that's how you get more repeats, right?
Yep.
With granular delays, what it does is you have the signal going into it, and then the granular part of it is like what'll chop it up into different things
bits
that could be repeated at different times or repeated at different lengths. The LVX has a granular delay function in it. I've not explored it really much at all, but it kind of does that. What I found is, granted, I've only spent like 1 week with the microcosm before I sold it. Partially because I felt like I got what I wanted. The difference between the sound that I had versus what you were just doing is the microcosm kind of starts, its onset of its granular stuff is a lot warmer right off the bat, whereas my stuff is more intentionally focused more on like the high stuff and like the glitchy, like, irrepeatable, whatever stuff. So like in that sense, the microcosm definitely has a place for that thing, because it's like we said before, the Strymon stuff versus Mara's stuff is that one thing has you got to work for your sound if you want to create your own thing, your own sonic signature, versus something that has a bunch of really great sounds right off the bat. The microcosm does the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's to me, I'm a visual person, so I like the menus. I like I like knowing the signal path. I like visualizing where it is, versus a pedal that just has a bunch of knobs. And I'm like, what's happening here?
Right. Yeah, I hear that. So you like almost predictability more than like unpredictability when you're playing.
Yes and well, no, not necessarily. It has more to do with I want to know how I'm accomplishing the unpredictability.
Right.
Rather than having the actual thing be predictable.
Right. Okay.
Makes
sense.
Cool. That was one of the reasons why, I think we were talking about it before, why my effects journey started with, I had the Timeline Big Sky, then I sold both the Timeline and Big Sky, got a Volante and a Night Sky, because I was chasing textures. The Big Sky didn't have what I wanted in the realm of textures. It was like, it all sounded very, very good, but it didn't give me like grittiness. It didn't give me something that was a little bit out of left field. It was very, cloud, very plate, very whatever. And they all sounded great, but I wanted to accomplish something that was like, oh, what if I ran a delay into or a reverb into a distortion pedal, or I overdrove the circuit going into my tape machine, or there's something like that. It's like, and then, eventually it led me down the road of once Maris released the LVX and the Mercury X, then I got, I replaced because for a while there I had the LVX and the Night Sky. And the Night Sky did some really cool things for me. One of the cool things on it is that its modulation section could be altered by an LFO as well. So like you could actually have like these like really gnarly like pitch rises and falls in the reverb decays, which the Mercury X currently does too, albeit a little bit differently. It just gave me these cool textures, and the cool thing about the Night Sky too was that it you could impose saturation in different parts of the signal path. Granted, it was still different than the Mercury X, as well as place shimmer, or what they call glimmer. So you could do shimmer or anti-shimmer, and then you could affect the frequency response of the shimmer or the glimmer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool.
so it was like, so you could have like an octavey type effect that didn't sound like pristine shimmer octaves. You could add octave effects that had kind of this gritty texture to it.
That's cool.
There was that felt a lot softer than just. It had more to do with harmonics. It's like, you know, in talking with Kenyon, he's what I see him to see is he's pursuing like harmonic content in his effects, and that's really what he likes about his current sounds that he's putting out there. And I agree, because it's like, dude, like you're finding a whole different source of inspiration by, oh, like this thing is reacting with this thing, and then I get this thing from that, and it's like, oh, it's so much more better than each individual sum of its thing.
Right. Yeah, it's cool. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like your love for synthesis is perfect with these type of pedals, right?
Definitely.
It like just brings you down a road of, you have such a mind for that too. Like, when did you play guitar or synth first?
I've been playing guitar since I was 4.
Since you were 4? That's
so 32 years I've been playing guitar.
Dang, bro.
And then I started playing keys-ish. I say keys-ish because, you know, I had a keyboard in my house, and I would just kind of jank around it, and I was able to, you know, I knew theory pretty well relatively early on as a musician, like 15, 16, like I knew scales, and I understood all the notes on the fretboard for the most part.
That's cool.
So I was able to learn piano by knowing that. Once I learned that, all the white notes are the C major scale, and all the black notes are flats and sharps. Like, okay, here's an E flat. Like once I figured out, then from there it's all muscle memory. Like I'm still working on muscle memory for keys, but synthesis. My interest in synthesizers happened in 2020. Really?
Okay.
Realistically,
did you see somebody or a band or what?
I'm trying to think of what it was. I think it was one of our worship leaders stepped down.
Okay.
And so like one of our worship leaders he was moving. He became a pastor somewhere.
Yep.
And then the next man up took on that role, and that opened up kind of a keys-ish position.
Okay.
In our church, and I was like, oh, I can kind of, you know,
do it.
I basically I can make pads. I can make that kind of stuff. And then rabbit hole, just a deep rabbit hole of eventually because I want to say I started out by I bought this really cool synthesizer app on my iPad. So my iPad Pro and I had that connected to something. I don't remember what it was. And so I just had a controller, and I would just play lead lines, play pads, stuff like that. I had always been able to do like melodic stuff on piano.
Yep.
And then once I learned about synthesizers, I kind of grew from there. And then after that, then I was like, oh, I should probably get an actual keyboard. Or an actual synthesizer keyboard. This is all like even before me getting into like Mainstage or Ableton.
Right.
And I knew MIDI relatively well. Casey, what's up, bro? Casey's building. Casey just joined the chat on Instagram.
Oh, Casey from Florida?
Cool. Casey from Orlando.
How you like building that board, Casey, for 1 week until Anthony changes it, bro?
No, that's Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Anthony makes a lot of changes, but in some ways, maybe because he's less vocal about the things, it doesn't seem as much.
I think he just does it though. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's right. He just does it, and he doesn't care. I love it. Yeah, I love it. So back to the synth thing. Then I acquired my first actual synthesizer, which was a Behringer DeepMind.
Okay.
Kind of Juno 106 architecture.
Yep.
And then I did a worship night with another great Killer Keys player down here, and he had a Prophet, and I'm like, I want a Prophet now. And then just go down the list. Now I'm like, now I need a Moog.
You're right.
And just adding it.
Like with synthesis, right? I know a good bit about software. Like obviously you got like Omnisphere, you got Keyscape, all that stuff. I learned all that from my brother. What is like the Mount Rushmore of hardware gear though? Like, you know what I mean? Like you know how we talk about like we have the AC30 or like like you got certain amps in the guitar world. What's up there in the synthesis world where you're gonna be like, yeah, that's industry standard, not a Nord, like a synthesis wise. You know what I mean?
So the synth world, you have like the main players are Moog, Roland, and Yamaha, right? And then sequential. yeah, gosh, and then you have Oberheim. Gosh, there's so many. You have a lot of other different brands. Like I have a Ensoniq synthesizer, which is, let's see, that one right there,
Okay,
very bottom. And it's a different architecture entirely. Sounds killer.
right.
But it's different than everything else. So, Roland has the 106, that has the Juno 60, it has the Jupiter, it has the D50, the Phantom, that has all these different worlds. So, it's really Roland.
Yeah.
It's really Roland, Yamaha. Yamaha has the DX7.
Okay.
You hearing that noise?
I'm not at the moment. Is it
Okay.
going right now?
It's kind of coming in and out. It's fine. So then Yamaha DX7. DX7 is important because it was one of the first. It was one of the first FM synthesizers. FM stands for frequency modulation, which is where you modulate a frequency past like the audible level, and then that creates harmonics in the note. And then when you start layering that with other things, that's how you get
Wild.
different stuff. What else after that? Moog, Moog's been around 70s, or actually maybe even late 60s, I think.
Okay. You don't have any Moogs yet?
No, not yet.
You're trying to get one soon.
So I'm torn. So my wall of synths, I have the DeepMind. I currently have a 106, which I'm getting repaired because one of the voice chips died. I have a DX7. Then I have a Prophet Rev 2. And then I have the Ensoniq.
So cool.
And I actually have some other smaller synthesizers too, but they're around.
That's
the
very
Prophet is probably my favorite right now. If and when I get the Moog Muse, which I heard in person from Chris Worley, that might take that spot.
Okay.
But they're different, and they, to me, it's like amps, right? You have, I have I think I have 6 amps or 6 or 7 amps, and they're all. They're not all the same. I don't have a bunch of AC Theras. I don't have a bunch of Deluxes. I don't have a bunch of whatevers. And so they all fill different spots, right?
Yep.
And so to me, it's valuable to have all these different options available, whether I'm actually going to use them for producing or just playing live or whatever.
Right. That's cool. Well, it sounds like it's very, like, you're pretty into the keys stuff. So, like, when you talk about a guitar amp, obviously you got digital now, and you have, real amp world. Is the difference very similar when you're talking like analog hardware synth versus Omnisphere or using software? Is it like that much noticeable, or is it like, yeah, I'm a hardware guy and I'm going to use it, but you can't bring obviously 4 different synth keyboards to a gig. You're stuck with, you typically choose one, right? If you're on a thing, like. How do you do that? Like, if you play keys at your church, do you bring one of your hardwares, or do you just leave it at home? Is it like that type of thing? I
can, for sure.
Right.
So I was a part of the a recent album recording for our church.
Yeah.
And I brought my Prophet, and I used a mixture of the Prophet with some Omnisphere and Keyscape sounds. Okay. But really, you got the most use out of the core Prophet sounds because it was different. It had its own kind of texture.
And it has preamps and stuff, I'm guessing, or what? How does, like, I have no idea about hardware synth.
Yeah, I mean, dude, synthesizers is a deep hole.
Right. Chips. I heard you say chips, right? So it has chips.
Yeah.
In it.
So you have so like the Roland, one of the voice cards is actual. It's a physical card. It's about, I don't know, yay big with a bunch of pins. You actually solder it into the PCB. That actually generates a voice that can be used. So the Juno 106 has 6 voices. When you play it, if you play more than 6, then you lose one of your voices somewhere in the thing.
Gotcha.
The Prophet Rev 2 has 8 voices. You can upgrade it to 16 voices if you want. The Oberheim X8 has 8 voices. The Moog Muse has 8 voices. You can do different layers. You can do what's called bitimbral, which would be like if you play a chord, different parts of the note of your chord could be spatially somewhere else in the stereo field.
Wild.
So the Moog Matriarch has that. It's a bitimbral synthesizer where you can do, if you play a C chord, C major chord, you could have your C on the left, you can have your E on the right, and your G in the middle, or something like that.
Bro.
Yeah, the ability to layer is really crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So
how do you know so much about it though? Like, do you like listen to YouTube videos a lot or podcasts, or are you like actually Googling, or what do you do?
So much YouTube.
So much YouTube. Okay.
So much YouTube.
Literally, like, you're literally pulling all these exact words. It's not like you're fudging it and trying to like be like, oh yeah, and you're like, this buy blah 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 thing, and
yeah. No,
like it does this specific thing and makes it. It's just I'm like, this guy either listens to a lot of YouTube or he researches a ton. Probably both. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I definitely do a lot of both.
That's sick.
Hold on a second. I'm getting some weird audio issues.
Is it my mic?
I think it is your mic.
Let me see.
Those of y'all on Instagram or YouTube, can y'all confirm if the mics are sounding kind of weird?
Is it still sounding jank to you right now?
Well, it's kind of coming in and out. It almost sounds like you know how when you have your phone too close to your speaker?
Yep, I just took mine away, so maybe it'll be better now.
Try. Actually, this is a good time. Hey, y'all. Thanks, Jack, for confirming it. It is sounding weird. We're about to get almost to an hour on Instagram. If you want to keep listening, you head over to YouTube. We can continue streaming on YouTube for a little bit longer. Went away for a second. Maybe it was your iPad.
It might have been this. Yeah, that's what I was trying to check. If it's gone now, it's probably this.
Steven Thompson is like, Steven is a robot confirmed.
That's hilarious.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that was probably it. Yeah, it's better now.
Stinking RF, bro.
Dude, it's weird, man. It's so weird. Like,
It's weird.
Yeah.
Dude, there'll be times I'll be playing, and then I'll, like, randomly, it'll sound like a bomb went off in my ears. I'm like, and I'm like, yo, chill. Like, all right, it's my phone. And then I get my phone right away, the pickups and stuff. Yeah. Dude, 100%. There's at church, I have my iPads on a mic stand, so I'm usually MDing, so I have a mic, with an iPad stand because it controls ears. And dude, it happened at our live recording thing a couple times, but you can only hear it like when it's super low, and when you have like when you have a lot of reverb and drive on. But 100% when we're at the end of a song doing transition, everybody's swelled out, and I just started like talking, and I'm like, yo, what? And I pulled my guitar back. It was something like coming from my iPad, 100%. Like,
oh yeah,
you know how it does that?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
it's no different than your phone next to if you have your phone in your pocket of your guitar.
Yep.
Or not your pocket of your jeans, and you have your guitar in front of it. Yeah, 100%.
Because it's right there. It's probably like 2 feet away, I'd say my iPad is, when I'm, right up on there. I was like, oh crap, get away from there. It just sounds like somebody's gonna think somebody's talking or something through it. But yeah.
So back on the topic of synthesizers, I mean, really just kind of, I would treat it like picking a guitar that you want to use for the weekend.
Okay.
Like, if I want to use my Juno, for a while there, if I was doing keys stuff, I would bring 2 synthesizers as well as my Ableton setup. That way I could layer them however I want to.
Because you can use the onboard stuff with software too, right?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. It's
older stuff too. So like do you have vintage synths or no? Is it all more modern? Where it's MIDI capable.
The Juno's vintage, and Sonic is vintage, and the DX7 is vintage. The only stuff I've really taken out has been the Prophet, and the DeepMind. Those are both USB devices, so I can just plug in USB. They're fine.
Right.
But in terms of audio routing, hold on a second, y'all on Instagram, the chat's about to be, or the video is about to be canceled. So I'm just going to end it right now, and head over to YouTube and keep listening to us. See y'all. Cool. Yeah, so you can do it. I'm trying to think of. I mean, so like realistically, you have a multi-input interface. Just plug the synthesizers into the interface and then layer them however you want. And
that's sick, man.
Yeah,
very cool.
The cool thing about that is that I have some sounds on the DeepMind, which is Juno-ish, right? Okay. And so, but when I layer those, because like I have the sounds from there being very like warm and mid-rangey,
right?
Like low, mid, heavy, So it's very, very full sounding, but I can layer that with something from the Prophet that has like a lot more top end.
Okay.
And the blend of the two, especially if you put it through, Valhalla Plate or Valhalla Vintage Verb or whatever,
The Lord's
it just glues it all together into something that's a lot more, that's a lot bigger than the sum of its parts, right?
Right. Very cool.
That's kind of the theme, really, sonically, with everything I do. I try to
Textures, man.
add layers and textures that can make something that's really, really special.
That's really cool. You should do a Wednesday night. We're already turning this into a Keys Wednesday night or Thursday night live, but you should do one where you like go through some of your synth sounds. That'd be sick, like hardware stuff. That'd be fun.
I mean, I can do it. So I have all my stuff routed into a MIDI like patch bay type thing.
Oh, cool.
So I can control everything from my controller right here on my desk.
That's so awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Wait,
it's
so
fun.
you don't even need to be at your thing, like physically.
No. Don't need to.
You're literally just playing through essentially like through the amp would be for the guitar thing. You're just playing through. That's really cool. I didn't know that's possible. I thought you'd have to be like physically playing the thing to get the sound. That's really cool.
Well, it's MIDI. So I'm sending
cool.
MIDI from my computer via my controller right here.
Yep.
To my keyboards.
Nice.
And it tracks just fine. There's no latency, really, or no noticeable latency. And then for me, I have all of those synthesizers routed into different inputs on my interface, so they're all separate. And then, dude, it's
that's wild, dude. Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of cables.
What do you use for interface stuff?
I have an RME Fireface UFX Plus.
Okay.
I've had a bunch of different ones over the years. I've had I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, I had 2 rack Apollos and then a desktop Apollo. They're all chained together.
Wow.
Had a bunch of channels, and they sounded great. At some point, I moved away from wanting the UA plugin type thing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a better sounding interface.
Okay.
Audio conversion is another deep rabbit hole that's ultra nerdy.
I'm starting my journey down that. I just showed you I got the Antelope.
Yeah.
I had the Presonus before 1816. It was a 4-thing interface, so I had more. But Eric from the chat, Eric Mooney, who's the sound guy, he does all that stuff. He was like, dude, you got to like upgrade that. So one of the other guys was wanting to trade for something simpler, so we just traded.
Nice.
But he was very adamant about like if you have bad preamps, if you have bad interface quality, it's gonna affect you're leaving a lot to be desired. You could be leaving a lot to be desired, especially when you're tracking at home. So I'm gonna be actually doing overdubs for our live thing we did. So I wanted to make sure I had like the best stuff. At least the best quality I can give. Rather than
for sure. And honestly, realistically, like there's nothing wrong with an Apollo. Like Apollos sound great, especially the newer ones. There's no like. It's splitting hairs like to such a degree, But at some point, you'll graduate from the Antelope stuff to something different, right? Because at some point your ears are gonna be like, oh, I'm. So for me, when I moved away from the Apollo, I wasn't sure if I was gonna get an Antelope, not the Galaxy, if I was gonna get the whatever their 32 input one was.
Okay.
Or if I was going to get the RME, the Fireface.
Right.
There's a few things I wanted to accomplish. And I was actually talking to Devin, what's his name? Townsend? Devin Tone Shepherd guy.
Tone Shepherd. Devin Tone Shepherd.
Devin Tone Shepherd. I was talking to him about it today because he was like, oh, I just recently learned about using ADAT to expand channels on my interface. ADAT's those the little like fiber optic cables that comes from the back of your TV, goes to your soundbar. Yeah. Those are called Toslink cables. They're just like, it's a little fiber optic cable. It can transmit 8 channels of 8 individual channels of audio
over one cable. That's pretty cool.
Over one cable, one direction. So it's one direction only. So it's to do inputs and outputs. Outputs are important if you are using hardware or if you wanted to route it somewhere else, whatever.
Right.
That's important. It also helps with clock syncing, which is that's another rabbit hole again. So actually, so when I sold the Apollos, actually technically right before I sold the Apollos, I spent way too much money, and I bought the RME UFX Plus And I bought the Antelope Audio, whatever rack mounted one that I wanted to try out as well as my Apollos. And for like a week and a half, I had all three of them. It was like $7,000 of gear. Sweetwater, return policy. Vintage King, return policy. That's all I'll say. And so, but I just got to compare, and honestly, the first thing I noticed was as soon as I connected into one of the other interfaces, it felt like a blanket got lifted off my signal. Like I wouldn't say that it felt muddy, but all of a sudden, wide stuff felt wider, bright stuff felt brighter, low end stuff felt more
clarity.
I felt clarity.
Yep.
And then, so then that had me testing out because I had a newer Apollo desktop. So I was like, okay, well, what if I monitor through my Apollo desktop and not my rack one? Because my rack ones were older. They were like 5 or 6 years older than my actual desktop one. I noticed the same thing there. I was like, okay, so there's something with audio conversion with the newer stuff.
Right.
And so, actually, I take it back. That was what actually got me initially trying because I wanted to see if there was a difference, and I found, okay, there was a difference between the older rack Apollo versus my desktop Apollo. Then I was like, well, but then if I chose that as my main monitor output, then all of a sudden I'm grossly limited by my channels that I can use because the way the Apollo works in the console and everything. So then I was like, okay, that led me down the road of, well, do I go with RME? Do I go with Apogee? Do I go with whatever? Apogee is very expensive for the amount of channels that I was eventually hoping to expand with.
Right.
And ultimately, I really liked the Antelope stuff. I liked it a lot. But what I didn't like was their software that comes with the their higher level interfaces. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was very buggy, very glitchy, and at the time their customer service wasn't great. I've heard it's changed pretty significantly over the last few years. So,
Jimmy, just so you know, too, I got to go in like 1 minute. Just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my wife just texted me. She's like, "Yeah, baby's not doing good."
Oh, okay, gotcha. Anyway, honestly, we can just call it a day here. But basically, I ended up getting an Army Fireface UFX Plus, and then recently I expanded my channel account with a Ferrofish A32, and that connects over a MADI cable. MADI for fiber optic. It's like a data cable.
So sick, dude.
And so I can get 32 channels. Actually, I can get 64 channels over MADI. Which is one cable.
More channels available than most churches that are small.
Yeah, realistically, I do.
I think we have 48 at our church.
And the funny thing is, I mean, between all my hardware, all my synthesizers, that's 8 channels. I have 2 sets of 8 sets of rack stuff. So I have 16 channels. Right. So I'm actually using it. I'm actually really freaking using it, in addition to all my other miscellaneous guitar stuff and mics and preamps and everything. So, yeah. All right, I hear you, baby. Well, guys, thanks for joining us for Wednesday Night Live. Steven, thanks you so much for hanging out. I know it's late over on the Eastern Seaboard. We'll see you guys next week. And
thanks for having me, Jimmy.